Okay, here's the video feedback for Jacob Royle Evatt for part 1 of the animation and simulation module. Okay, Jacob. I've had a look through your research and development portfolio, but I'll come back to that at the very last bit, or for the very last bit even. So we'll make a start with your files that you've submitted here. So this is obviously the figurative test file, range of motion. That seems to work pretty well, although there's a few bits of feedback I would give. If you're going to showcase a range of motion, I would have your camera moving close to the bit that you're trying to show off. For example, if you're going to have that movement, it'd be useful to have a camera that comes in to the side of where the knee is, and maybe one that comes in over the top of where the elbow is, so we can see the real challenging bit, how good a job you've done on that. So, that would be useful. Now, it looks like you've done a reasonably good job. If I kind of to and fro that, it looks pretty good, but this camera angle could hide sort of a multitude of sins, as the saying goes. So let's keep going. I see that you've kind of got some sort of toe roll on here, which I guess we'll have more evidence of on your next video clip, which is the one that shows all the controls that you've set up and everything for that. Looks like there's a little bit of pulling of the clothing, which I suppose is true. Although the way it kind of flexes, it looks a bit more like it stretches rather than kind of pulls the clothing. Although it didn't look too much at, rigging for clothes, but I want you to attempt it anyway. Looks reasonable. One thing that does stand out here is probably that in terms of range of motion, I'm not sure that this position of the arm is that true. To real reference, let's say. Generally speaking, around this point, perhaps a little earlier, the clavicle bone would start to come into play, and that would kind of just pull up a bit, which is why we seem to get that little dip before it goes up towards the neck area up here. So we've got that slightly anatomically incorrect sort of look. So that's more of an animation thing, but it would have been good for you to try and get that right. Okay, a little bit of penetration of the material of the dress there over the kind of the denim top. Again, I think it's relatively easy to fix, and you should have noticed that, particularly with this texture maps on. It's something you should have gone in and just been able to paint out the weight, maybe reduce the weight of the dress or up the weight of the denim top there. I think that would have fixed that. Okay, let's just move on to your next video, which is your complete control system. And let's see what we've actually got here. This should be slightly more telling, I think. Okay, that looks pretty good. Again, I'd like to see you moving a little bit closer on that to showcase it, but it does work, it functions, so technically speaking, it all works well. I like the fact that it does pull the dress round a little bit as well. There's no intersection, it appears, of this leg of the dress, so you've obviously got a good kind of fall off across the rear of the dress there. I did notice there, that was coming down that leg, it's like a little spiky piece popped out here. Then seemed to vanish, so that could have been a glitch in the video, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. Yeah, that all seems to work pretty well. Bit of a weird thing with the shoulder going on there. It seems to almost like do it then pop back in though, so maybe it's just something that's correcting itself once the movement's been made. Yeah, so far this looks very, very good. One little bit of a tip I would give you when you're showcasing your work though is, so I don't think you do this towards the end or anything, do you? No. Would be to, for something like this, just remove all the clothing as well to showcase, what lies beneath the clothing, because it could be that the clothing there is just disguising lots of issues and errors, which in a production environment it's fine. If you're only ever going to have the clothes on, that's a great thing because it will hide it away. But I think for this, for an assessment point, it would have been useful to take them off so we can actually have a look at what lies beneath. If there's any crumpling of the mesh or anything. Good bending of the mesh there. I see. So you've actually noticed in here that you've actually set up your facial control system for this mesh here. Okay, that's interesting because of the idea of the assignment was that you were given a separate mesh for the facial rigging. That was supplied to you. But that all just seemed to function pretty well. I mean, I'm quite pleased with that. I mean, I like the fact that particularly with the mouth area, that you seem to have used good visual reference to get this to work right, because they, anatomically speaking, they look pretty good, those facial control, particularly around the mouth things. That's a bit hidden behind the eyes, but okay, yeah, some good work there. Now I'm going to have a look at your next clip because I'm interested to see how the animation of this works. Yeah, I mean it looks pretty good. I mean, I think it's also helped out because you've got an excellent texture map on this as well, which was given to you. So I think that does make a difference. But I think you've done a good job there in terms of, to my mind, referencing realistic sort of mouth movement. I'm pleased that you've seen the benefit of having when the mouth opens, or the lips part at the very least, that there's a slight dip down at the top lip, and that's met kind of halfway up there or thereabouts by the bottom lip as well. It's not just this is flat and there's a little tiny curve there or anything. So you've done a pretty good job of that there. I'd like to have seen perhaps a little bit more evidence of some facial stuff in this, because in your demonstration here we don't see anything done with the eyes. So the suggestion, or rather the requirement of the brief, said that you have to have a combination of bones and blend shapes within the face. Again, I'll have to have a look at your Maya file for that. Use of corrected blend shapes, which you may have for the lips there. Again, I'll look in the Maya file. Blinkable eyelids, I don't think we really see that in there. Certainly no demonstration of it. Animatable eyes, again, there's no demonstration of that there. So some of this stuff we're going to have a look in the Maya file. Mouth and brows, yes, you've definitely done that. The other stuff, kind of extras, things like deformable eyelids with eyebrow, rather deformable eyelids with eye movement, jaw left and right, and exaggeration tools perhaps. So let's have a look in your Maya file and see what we've got there. So here we are. I've just opened up your file in Maya. So as I suspected, there's no other facial animation tools in there. So effectively, you've not really followed the brief fully. The brief does state very clearly, especially with the additional guidance document which I supplied to you right from the first week, I believe, there need to be blinkable eyelids, animatable eyes, so a control system which will allow you to kind of have the eyes orientate with some kind of a look at type constraint controller or point controller. So there's quite a bit missing really for the facial stuff. I mean, this is not really enough based on the assignment brief. I'd like to see much more there. So, I mean, in fact, the other thing, of course, is this is the wrong character for the face. You were given a character head specifically to use for facial rigging. So again, that's another element that you've not followed in the assignment brief or in the tutorial material that's been given out. It's a real shame, really, because you've shown that you can do this stuff. You've shown it specifically when I look at the shape editor. With the fact, you've set all these shapes up, they work well. You've even set up kind of shapes for, blend shapes for things like knees and legs and all that kind of stuff. So they're kind of corrective type things. So again, that works pretty well. And I can see that, when you did have an issue with maybe an arm movement or something, you realise that you could set up like a corrective type morph, which would fix all that stuff, So you obviously know your way around this. It's just a shame that we don't see you kind of doing the assignment properly, doing everything that you've been asked to do. So that's a bit of a letdown, really, particularly for the facial stuff. So at the moment, I would say the figurative stuff, not including the face, the figurative stuff is better than the facial stuff because the facial stuff is incomplete. Now let's just have a look at your portfolio of research and development. Okay, so what there is there is okay, it's pretty good. It's just that there's just not enough. This seems a little bit, I don't know this for certain, but it seems a little bit like I know I'm supposed to do it, so I'll do it at the end type thing. I don't necessarily get the feeling that much of this has hugely informed your approach to the assignment. It seems very much more like there's a few more marks to play for, I better do this thing. rather than I'm going to do this, and it's going to inform my approach throughout the assignment. That's what it feels like to me. That said, I think these two final sort of slides here, actually, they're pretty useful to you. You know, in order to have an accurately read character, I will need to ensure, and so on and so forth. So you found the key points. You know, you bulleted them correctly, and these are good, important things. You will need blend shapes to tidy things up. Yeah, you will. And in control systems, there's certain things that you will need in a control system. Of course, need to be, you know, easily identifiable and intuitive. That's why you have them. They need to work, they need to function, but they need to be logical as well. So you've got the idea of it, but what frustrates me is I don't really think that you applied much of this, nor have you really adhered to the assignment brief to get the job done. What you have done is, you know, in places very good, but they're just not enough of following the assignment brief to do everything you're supposed to have done. So that's a little bit of a disappointment. So that's a real shame.